That's fine.
So, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? I know you guys are like beat right from work and everything. So, everybody coming
Yes.
from work. Well, we're going to do some amazing stuff tonight. We're going to talk about how to tell that powerful story of yours. And I know you got one. All of us got one. We're going to look at it. We're going to go deeper into it. I got some pretty good tools that I want to give you that you can walk away with. You can be like, wow, I can take this and really, really get into telling my story. And something I really want you guys to think about. We're going to start out with me just saying this. Just really think about this. What if I was to tell you that your story is really not even your own? Not even really yours. I know you're probably thinking, how's it not mine? I'm the one with the story, right? But what if I told you that you were really just a vessel? That your story don't really belong to you. It was simply the experiences. It was simply just the experiences given to you for you to build tenacity and resilience and determination you needed. So you get to help me change my life because I met you. Right? That's what I'm talking about. That's the power of our story. Sometimes we think it's our own and we want to keep it and we want to bottle it up and we don't want to tell all the pieces of it. But it's really not for us. It's for us to help the next person. And so let's think about it. Let's take that into this class and let's work through a few things, right? But before we do that, since we've all kind of been working, having a long day, let's just take a moment here and have a deep breath. So if you would with me, you can close your eyes or you can keep them open, whatever you're comfortable with. Let's take a deep breath in and exhale. Let's take another deep breath in and exhale. And let's do that one more time. Another really deep breath in and exhale. Right. Let's get where we're relaxing. Relaxing, guys. So, what's my why? What do I um what do I think about stories? Well, let me share a really quick story with you, right? So I was a mama baby, right? Some people, girls, they're like, I'm a daddy baby. Well, I was a mama baby. So I always found my way to figure out how to give my mom a big hug. But every morning, ever since I could remember, right, I always would wake up to this wonderful smell, this wonderful aroma of coffee. And it was like coffee with sugar and cream in it. And it was like coffee and sugar and stuff with cream in it. And I could smell it in my room. You could sort of smell it all throughout the house. And my mom back in the day, they would brew their coffee on the stove. It wasn't, it was the real Maxwell house. It wasn't these Keurig machines that we're using now. And so I was probably about 5, and I would always beg my mom to give me a cup of coffee. I would say, "Ooh, that smells so good. Can I have a cup of coffee? Give me a cup of coffee." And she would never like give me a cup of coffee. She would always say, "You're too young, you're too little, you don't need to be drinking coffee. It's caffeine." I didn't even know what caffeine was. But she had this beautiful like mug that she drank coffee out of, and it had a saucer at the bottom. She was fancy, y'all, like in, Europe, like she was doing her thing. And so one day I like wore her down. She had like waste coffee all down in her saucer, right? And one day I wore her down and she gave me the coffee. You know how you just ready to sip on something good. She gave me the coffee that was sitting there in that saucer. And I drank it up and I anticipated and I was like, woo, this is really good. Right. And so me and my mom kind of had that ritual for years. Even once I started going to school, I still would never get a cup of coffee, but I would drink out of that saucer, right? And so I did that until I went in the military. I was like 18. I went in the military and I thought I was, all of that and a bag of chips and everything. I thought I was a bad girl. But one day I got that call. I got that call. You know how when you see somebody walking towards you and you know that they're probably not going to tell you something great? And it was the sergeant telling me that Red Cross was looking for me. Right? That my mom was not well and that I needed to get home. And you guys, I'm telling you, it was probably one of the worst days of my life. That flight home seemed like forever. And I got there and I realized that she wasn't going to make it, right? And I had put in for a humanitarian to get stationed near her. I was like, at least I could be near her, right? Could go there, we could hang out a little bit, maybe even drink coffee. And the day my humanitarian came through, I was happy. And I got a call a little later that same day saying she had passed. So it was like the best day and the worst day of my life, right? So I lost my mom. And what happened is I started being out here in this big world. And I started letting the world just kind of eat me up and let the world, like it was starting to just happen to me versus me happening in the world, right? It was starting to like eat me up. And I had no kind of overflow. I had no saucer to drink from. And what I realized is that my mom was pouring from her overflow. She was pouring from that overflow in me every day for years and years and years until I could graduate, right? Until I went in the military. And so for the longest, so I had that, then I didn't have it. So I was just walking around with all these pretty empty cups because I used to collect coffee cups. They were just pretty and empty, not realizing I was empty too, right? So I'm going to ask you today, how do you fill your cup, right? What's in your overflow? So let's unpack your resiliency story, right? And that resonate with you, say yes, yes, yes in the chat for me. If you're ready to go, say, let's go, let's go. So let's do it. So what I want to say to you guys is we're going to talk about what is storytelling? How do you get a resiliency mindset? How we're going to discover your story and then crafting your resiliency story. Can everybody see okay? If you can't see, everybody's good. Is the screen, you see the screen good? Good, good, good. So when you think about storytelling, right? We're going to explore like the whole concept, what it really means, why is it powerful? There's 100 things to storytelling. There's no way we could go into all of that. And then we'll get into how you really understand resiliency, how do you really discover your narrative, what is the power of it, and then how do you craft it, right? So why am I the one that's talking to you about this, right? You're like, okay, great. You had a story. You got stories. What's up, girl? How you come to us? How you telling us about this? Well, really, it kind of happened accidentally, right? I was looking for ways to make my prevention training more meaningful for the guys I was working with in the Air Force, and I ran across storytellers, and I like hit a gym right in the Air Force, because there were people who was like, I'm ready to tell my story. I'm ready to tell my story. I'm ready to tell my story. But I also have 2 decades of being a licensed professional counselor. I've also worked in holistic resiliency for more than 6 years. I've also stood up a resiliency center for the Air Force for airmen to go towards their true north. I've also managed sexual assault programs, resiliency programs. I did a lot of stuff, ladies. And also now I do social psychology. I teach it at for Mississippi State University. So I've had a lot of experience in resiliency and counseling and what it means for people to really just unpack their stuff and really put their pieces together. Right? And my last baby is my entrepreneurship. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit later, but I host a podcast called Real Story, Real Healing. And it really offers a lot of insight into people's stories. So I'm going to introduce that to you a little bit later too. So what is storytelling? It's really about bringing your authentic self to life. That's what storytelling, ever since ancient times, storytelling has been there, right? But it's really about how you bring your authentic self to life, how people connect with you, how people can go deeper with you. But the real magic happens when you show a story. Everybody say show. Show a story instead of telling a story. Show a story. Put it in the chat. Show a story. So imagine like painting a vivid picture of something, right? And it's unfolding in your mind. It's not like saying I'm angry and you telling somebody you're angry. You have to show it. You have to show it with maybe how your face is tight, how your jaw, your hand is clenched and everything, your jaw's clenched. You have to show them your experience and your story, not just tell them about it. And guess what? This is true for you all who are have businesses, as well as personal. Because if people can't connect with you in your business, they're not going to be able to connect with you personally or in your business without them understanding your story. So what I'd like for you to do, if you don't have it right, is grab a sheet of paper. Grab a sheet of paper really quick. Everybody grab a sheet of paper. And on that sheet of paper, I want you to draw 3 horizontal lines. Just leave some space in between them. Draw 3 lines. Right? So on the first line down the side, write content. And then in the middle line there, hold up, wait, right. In that middle line, I want you to write your services or products. Say my products or my services. That's on that middle line down the side. And then that last line, write education, your education. And then between that first and second line, I want you to draw a hump. Draw a hump between that first and that second line. And in the middle of that, write on the top of it, write my story. So between that second and third line, draw a hump. And then at the top, write my story. So how does that connect, right? So this is what I call the drawbridge, right? So what happens when you try to draw a bridge between people understanding you and getting to know you, like, and know and like you, right? People make content, right? And that content has to connect to your story. Get the first hump? And then your story has to connect to your products and services, right? The second hump. And then your products and services have to connect to your story. And then your story has to connect to your, I say, education, your resume, who you are, why you're doing what you're doing. So sometimes we try to start businesses or we try to engage with people without us telling our story. But your story is where the magic is. The story is where you actually connect the bridge. Your story is actually where people decide whether they want to do business with you. So we shouldn't run away from our story. We actually need to step in a space where you have nothing to hide, nothing to protect, nothing to prove, or nothing to defend with your story. And that's where you're going to have the most powerful rendition of your story, when you walk into your story that way. And you're always going to connect with somebody when you do that. Okay, so we're going to look at one other thing. I want you to say the dip theory, like the dip, right on your paper, the dip theory. Anybody get anything out the bridge though? If you got anything from the bridge, say yes in the chat for me. Was the bridge helpful? Anybody want to talk about it before we move on? Anybody want to talk about the bridge? Anybody want to talk about the bridge? Any questions about the bridge?
I think it's self-explanatory and it makes complete sense to how you're connecting the things, like your content, and how, in order to develop that, you have to have that story behind it. So thank you for utilizing that analogy.
Good, thank you, thank you. Hi. Camilla, is it Camilla? You have questions or comments?
No, I don't have a question or comment. I was just saying it was very helpful in regards to how I can connect to people, because it's a struggle for me. So this is definitely very helpful.
Good. Glad to hear that. So write the dip theory on your page, right? Everybody write the dip theory. So the dip theory, and this is something that I got from Lisa Nichols, and I'm gonna actually have you guys watch a segment of her doing this in just a moment. But the dip theory is like, it's this powerful metaphor of using storytelling and public speaking together, right? So it kind of signifies in your story the highs and the lows, the challenge and the triumphs in our life story. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. So the D in the dip is disruption. So this is like the beginning of the dip, the point at which you encounter a problem. Like you're going along fine, right? In your life, whatever is happening with you. And then you kind of encounter a problem or a setback or a challenge. And so it disrupts your normal routine, right? So it could be it could be a personal loss, failure, or it can be anything that kind of upsets your equilibrium. And you're at this high, or you're at your status quo, and you sort of dip, right? You take a dip. And then after you dip, you have this sort of inner struggle, right? You got this inner thing going on. And this is like the deepest part of your dip, where you grapple with the disruption. It's like you struggle. You got uncertainty. You have to, and you're trying to figure out a way to come out of that. And you got all kinds of emotions and stuff going on, problems in that inner struggle. So you're here, you're where you normally are, you take a dip, then you struggle with it, and then you sort of progress out of it. That's the P. And then you sort of come out of that dip. You climb out of that dip, right? And you find your way to cope and your way to overcome. So what this really is in that dip, guys, and we do it over and over at different stages and parts in our life, that is your resiliency story. That does represent your personal growth, your learning, your triumph. Every time you take a dip. But sometimes we don't notice that dip, and sometimes we avoid that dip when we start trying to tell people about who we are and what we're about. What we normally tell them is just our resume. Well, they can read that, and then a lot of times they also, your resume, it's on, we tell them about that, but what they really want to know is your dip. What they really want to connect to is your dip. They don't really want to connect to what's on your resume. Your most powerful thing is the dip theory and how you show them the dip theory, right? How you show people the dip theory. So everybody put dip in the chat. So right now, I just want you really quick before we move on, picture a dip in your life. a low period, right? Followed by an upward climb. You don't have to share it. If you do share it, that's great. But picture a dip, a low point in your life, followed by an upward climb. And I want you to write what that was on your sheet of paper. Take a moment, write what was your dip? What was one of your dips that you can remember, right? And then take a moment to see what this disruption was, the dip, and then what was your inner struggle? And then how did you progress out of it? So that's all resiliency, learning to tell your resiliency stories is identifying your dips, walking through them, help and climbing out of them, and then crafting experiences into a compelling stories around those dips, right? So I want you really quick to watch a dip in action here. And then when she's done, I want you to tell me how amazing it is.
And then I'm going to do it for you. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. And I want you to start practicing this. So the dip theory is on the top left-hand side of that big V, right? The upper left-hand corner. I want you to write who I am today, the highlights, who I am today. So some of you saw the video of me the other day. We were going to play it today. It didn't happen. You saw the video of me. The video of me is who I am today. So that's normally what introduces me, and that's the high part. Your high part is your resume, the accolades, the things people would say about you when they're introducing you. Does that make sense? The highlights of your life. It's the bomb.com, your bragging rights sheet. Whatever your bragging sheet is, that's the upper left-hand corner. Yes? Okay. The dip in the middle, all the way down to the center. That's your dark point, your dark point, a dark point in your life. Underneath that, the struggle. Write that. Underneath that, what I had to overcome. Underneath that, where I once was. Any way you need to look at it. I just want to give you a lot of sentence stems so you get it. Does that make sense? And then the upper right-hand corner, the lessons I learned. Why I'm different today. My life mission now. The dip theory will get you so many extended interviews, you cannot believe it. The dip theory is what will make your audience fall in love with you. The dip theory is why those of you who do love me, some of y'all don't, I know y'all waiting on me to get off stage, but like she is so intense. And I am, get over it. So the dip theory though is where you fell in love with me. The dip theory, it's not just the education, it's the dip theory. It's the fact that I can stand watch the dip theory at work. So I've been on Oprah. My brand last year touched 36 million people. I'm so grateful. I have 6 bestsellers under my name. My company is one of the fastest growing self-development companies in the industry. I'm excited about that. I'm the only woman in the self-development industry to have received $1 million to write one book. The last woman before me that received that was Hillary Clinton. I'm so excited. Upper left-hand corner. Got that? But let me tell you why. Because there was a time when I went to the ATM, and in order to get $20 out, I had to what? Have $20 in. And I had $11.42 in the bank. And I had an 8-month-old son. And his father had just been sentenced to 64 years in prison. And I looked at my future and I said, unless I get radical, unless I become non-negotiable, this is going to be an ugly journey. More for him than me. I looked at my life and I said, what if my past does not equal my future? What if I can create it? What if I stop keeping score? What if I gave Lisa 1,000 second chances and every time I got to 999, I pressed reset? What if? What if? What if I'm willing to be radical? I messed up a lot, y'all. I made a lot of horrible mistakes. But what I did do every time was get back up. My get up muscle's pretty strong. My get up muscle's pretty strong. And so I don't care how many times you get knocked down. What I'm committed to is helping you get back up. So today, I'm in my upper right-hand corner now, y'all. Today, I travel the world and I teach people how to turn their passion into profit, how to turn their dreams into their realities, how to get back up one more time, how to dance to their own beat, sing to their own song, find their own rhythm, do them no matter what, how to stop counting the knockdowns and just count the get-ups. That's what I do now. Y'all see the dip theory? You guys feel closer now? When Oprah's producer called me, she said, this was the question they asked every person in The Secret. As a result of knowing about the law of attraction, how is your life better now? And I assume that every expert went on to answer that question. Here's how it's better now. Well, knowing the dip theory, I said, because she already handled the high part for me, I'm in The Secret. I don't need to do that now. Most people try to do that. If you already have an introduction, don't build on that. Go right to the dip. You don't know how much time you have, right? So she said, she's calling me. So apparently that high part is kind of high, right? She said, now that you know about the law of attraction, how's your life better? I said, watch this. Well, Miss Yee, if you want to know how great my life is today, you first have to know what a mess it was before. I heard Scooby-Doo, huh? 2 hours and 30 minutes later, my phone died on her. My phone died. And it was so dead that when I plugged it in, it wouldn't even boot up. It was like, no, you on timeout. You need a damn cool down. So by the time it finally booted up, an hour later, I checked my voicemail, and Miss Yee, after 2.5 hours, she's a producer for Oprah, her voicemail is, gosh, Lisa, I'm so sorry we got disconnected. That was such a great story. She said, so I just want to know, I hope that I can call you in the morning, 9 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock your time. And oh, by the way, I talked to another producer, while I was waiting on your phone to come back on. She had been calling me, trying to get my phone to come back on because she liked the dip, y'all. Hello, you guys are trying to protect your dips. You trying to protect your dip. You trying to outrun your dip. You trying to make your dip sexy. You trying to mask your dip with who you are today. I need your dip to know that you are like me, that I'm not perfect and you're not perfect, so we're perfect for each other. I need your dip. Gift me with your dip. Don't rob me of your dip. Learn how to tell me your dip so that you don't leave me feeling dumped on, right? But share your dip with me because that's our likeness. That's our likeness. And so by the time she called me the next day, she goes, I talked to several directors. They're all so excited about you. I ain't even got to the other side, y'all. I'm just in the dip. Now, don't tell the dip as long as I told her dip. I was just learning about the dip theory then. Don't do the whole 2.5 hour dip, all right? That's like a tunnel. That's a cave, right? That wasn't a dip. It was a crater, right? I didn't know I was learning. Now I know. She said, would you be willing, get this, to tell that same story on national TV? Now, the way it was designed was there were just going to be 5 extras from The Secret on stage. And we all just shared a little bit. But it was my that had Oprah's producers change their plans. Now, I'm telling you this so you don't just think it's Lisa, it's the formula, right? Now, I'd like to think I have a little something to do with it because I'm obedient to the formula and the snazzle and the authenticity, but I promise you do it, your results will change. They then flew out to California and recorded my life story. They took me back to my middle school. They stood in front of my house in my old neighborhood. I hadn't even been back to my old neighborhood. I was like, are we gonna get an escort? Oprah got escorts. I ain't trying to go back there. But that's how amazed they were with the dip. And then the third segment, they renamed. And the third segment was called the Lisa Nichols segment. And they showed my backstory. And Oprah just talked to me.
All right, guys. What you thinking about the dip? What you thinking about the bridge? What are you thinking about the dip? Love it, love it. Anybody else? What are you thinking about it? Thinking about the dip. We're gonna go into the dip with your story. All right, we're gonna go into the dip with your story. So before we do that, let's just go through a little bit about having a resilient mindset. And we have a choice in how we go into whether we're going to have this mindset, whether we're going to tell our story, whether we're going to stand on our story, not in our story. We're going to stand on our story, not in our story, right? We got a choice. But what Lisa was saying is essentially you have to learn how to use language in a way that people connect with you in order for people to have a connection with you, for them to even know, like, and want to purchase from you, for those of you who may have a business segment here. And it matters when you are connecting with someone one-on-one. So you have to learn how to use all of this power that you have within you and in your stores. You have to understand that that's the special piece. That's really the special piece. And a lot of business owners miss that. A lot of people miss that's the special piece, is really your story, and bring awareness to your story. So how do we get past, I don't want to tell my story? You have to be willing to question your beliefs, your limiting beliefs about releasing your story, about letting people see your life unfold. One of the best things you can do as a business owner is let people see you go through the journey. I mean, from making $0 to your $1 million. You automatically become a believer. They automatically become a believer of you. But if you just show up on the scene, they think, yeah, right. Okay, I can do that. But if they go through the journey with you, they see you have done it, you have them, they know, like, and trust you. If they can go through the journey with you. So you have to be willing to allow yourself to tell your story. And you have to be willing to tell your story in the right structure. Sometimes we tell our story and we don't tell it in the right structure. So you can master how you want to tell your story. You don't have to just come out here and babble everything and just be telling your story in such a way where you got everybody, including yourself, in the room crying. You put it in such a way, and you frame it in such a way that you master how you tell that story, right? You rewrite it to reflect how you want it to be, right? So you have it within you to align with your desired life. This is where I've been, this is where I'm going, this is how I got there. And people will follow that, and your tribe will find you. Your tribe will find you if you do that in crafting your story, right? And then we owe it to the universe. Some of you wasn't in here when we first started the masterclass. What we were talking about is your story really yours? We talked about, is it really yours, or are you just a vessel? That these are my beliefs, everyone, that God has used for you to be resilient, for you to have the tenacity, for you to go through everything that you've gone through so you can meet me and help me. Don't we all have someone we help? Don't we all have someone that benefits from our story? there's someone in your life that benefits from your story. So it is a good thing. We have to learn how to use our language. We have to learn how to use it in our personal lives and our business lives. If we don't master how we use that and get good at that, then we won't be able to express the individuals why we are doing what we're doing and why we're so passionate about it, why we want to bring our thing to life if we don't do that, right? So let's talk a little bit about discovering your resiliency story. So everybody's different. Everybody's built different. Everybody got different DNA, different people they met along the way. Everybody got different genetics. Everybody's got different thoughts. Everybody's got different experiences. Everybody got different energy and emotions. Because some people say, well, that story's been told. If it's not you telling it, your story is not told. Because you're always going to tell it differently, and you're always going to connect with the audience differently. So it doesn't matter if they're similar stories, your story is always going to be authentically you and what you bring to the table. Nobody can tell your story because your life is unique. Everything about your life is unique. It's unique to you and what you've gone through and what you've been through. Right? It's like these snapshots of you along the way where you have this unique experiences and lessons and relationships and emotions. And I just remember like being a little girl, everybody had pigtails, but everybody's pigtails weren't the same. Where, you know, everybody was different. Everybody walked through life differently. You had the little girl who may have been a bully. You had a little girl who may have been bullied. Everybody had a different experience in how they came through different stages and ages in their life, different trials, different tribulations, different paths that we chose to walk in, different things that we experienced. Actually, from the moment we took our very first breath, it unfolded. Haven't you heard some people, they don't remember, but their parents might say to them, you know what? From the moment of your first breath, you went through something that showed me your resiliency. You ever seen a premature baby? And then later in life, they like the biggest one or the healthiest one. And somebody gets to tell them, hey, you were a fighter. You were a fighter then, you're a fighter now. Everybody has a story, and everybody has a powerful story that needs to be told. And I know sometimes, at least I feel like sometimes as women and sometimes as women of color, we think our story is not as important as the next person. But our stories are, and they are just as important. And we have a long history of stories. Stories that happened here in America, stories that happened before we were all in America. We have a long history of story and storytelling, right? So it's all about how you do that in every challenge you face and figuring out what you want to focus on when you focus on your resiliency story. So let's get to it. All right, so let's do this exercise, ladies. Let's do this exercise. On that same sheet of paper, early childhood, write something where you went through a dip. That truly affected you, that right now you can pull it back. You can pull it in right now. Okay. So from your young adulthood, write an experience, a milestone, an experience, or something that you went through that you can pull back in your young adulthood? When I say young adulthood, I'm talking like 12 to 18. So 12 to 20 or 12 to 18. Well, a lot of times we say to 21, 12 to 21, young adult. Unforgettable instant in your life, right? And then something from adulthood. And then if you are, write something that may be happening with you now, whether it's, hey, this is happening in my business, or this is taking me through all these emotions, whatever it might be that might be going on with you. So if somebody is brave enough, whichever one they put on either one of these 4 areas, if they are willing to say, okay, I'm going to share one thing and I'm going to try and move it through, what would the dip look like? What would be my high? What would be my struggle? And how did I progress out of it? Anyone willing to give it a try?
I can, some people on here already know what I'm going through now. But my dip now is, about 9 weeks ago, one of my best friends and line sisters suicide. And it was a line sister that was dealing with mental health and mental illness. And this month, May, is mental health awareness. And actually today, I actually got her line jacket and line shirt. So today's been an emotional day for me. So this was a dip for me, right? But what I have truly learned through this process, because grief it can be a lot, especially when someone commits suicide. You have a lot of feelings of like, I should have been there more. And that was something that I was going through, right? Daisy, we've talked about this. But what I said to myself is, it's okay, Jamie, that you were selfish in that moment, meaning when she needed, and I was there for her, but I was also going through a lot. And so that was a part of my grief, is that the one time, right, that I was like, I need to just focus on me and I can't help everybody. As many of you know, y'all know I be there helping everybody. But the one time with the one person that I said, Shamira, I can't take on what you're going through, because I'm going through so much, then she commits suicide, right? And not because of me, I know that. So what I have learned is, it's okay sometimes to be focused on yourself, and you cannot put other people's crosses on you. What you can do is you can check on your friends, right? You can love your family and friends, but it is okay to step away when your own mental health can also be affected by other people, right? So I think that was the dip for me. Is today was a hard day. I opened up the box, I cried, I talked to my grief counselor, and that was just 2 hours ago. So this is like fresh for me opening the box. But my dip is learning that, Jamie, you use her story to fuel your life and to help other people and to be honest about her death, right? And what happened. And a lot of remorse, a lot of people will have that I wish I could have done more, but just being having the conversation with people about what it looks like to be a survivor when your friend or family members commit suicide.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Jamie. Yes. And I really like that you said being authentic and being honest about, what happened and how it affected you. And so that's very powerful. And that's a happening now. That's a happening now for you. Anyone willing to talk a little bit about something that may have happened in an early childhood that they just, it didn't even have to be that, tragic, but just something that stuck with them and it was early childhood type thing?
I'll share. I actually grew up in a single parent family home, which my uncle, my mom's older brother, had to help her take care of my sister and I financially. And so that's when you start talking about the story, that's my why I go so hard, why I have all the accolades I've achieved thus far, because I wanted to be in a space where I could take care of my mom, not only my mom, but my entire family and my community, those who have put so much into assisting with developing the person I am today. So thank you for this exercise, Daisy.
You're welcome. And how could you, Dr. Roby, how could you use that in your business? How could you use that story in your business?
I'm just sharing resilience and perseverance, and where you start doesn't mean you have to end that way.
Yes, I love that. Yes, yes, yes. You can go from zero to hero to zero to a million and on and on and on, right?
And I tell people when I'm meeting with different doing different events, I share my story, but I don't share it to this magnitude, but I share like there's nothing special about me. Like I tell that I was raised in a single family home, and my family members had to help my mom take care of me. Like I share these things because I want to normalize, like there's nothing unique that I'm doing that you can't do.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Anyone else wanna share about that? That's how we frame out our stories. And that's how we move into our dip. And that's how we get people to connect with us. And when you tell that story, whatever that story is for you, and it's authentic and it's real. And like I said, it doesn't matter as long as it was impactful for you. It doesn't have to be tragic or anything like that. It was impactful for you. But if you tell that story, people will connect with you and they will know, like, and trust you. And people will, for those of you who are in business right now, they will buy from you because they feel closer to you now. And they feel like, oh, you're just like me. You're a part of me. Yes, go ahead. Camilla, please.
I have a question in regards to like the story changing, I guess, like the ones that when you were having us do this this activity, I was just writing down the first thing that popped into my head as opposed to like thinking for a long time because you were moving, so I had to move with you. And so mine, two of mine actually, and it's probably like why I was thinking about it is because of what I'm going through now. But I know like from my childhood, I put like that I remember this one time because I kept on complaining to my mom, like, I want to know my biological dad and blah, blah, blah. Like I have my stepdad and we were raised with my stepdad since I was 2. But I was like, oh, I want to like know my biological dad or whatever. And then so, because whenever we would spend time with him, it was always just for a couple of weeks in the summer. And so she was like, all right, fine, go over there for the summer. And then he was only used to us only being there for like a couple of weeks. So he went through, like he burnt through all of his money in like a couple of weeks, but we were there for the whole summer. And so I remember starving. And he was trying to, like, the only thing that he lived off of was donuts and whole milk. And he didn't have a refrigerator because he liked it warm. And I don't drink whole milk because I'm lactose intolerant and I don't like donuts. And so I was like, I have nothing to eat. And I remember me and my brother was looking at this piece of candy. It was a little piece of Twizzler on the ground. And we were about to fight an ant over it. And I was like, I remember that. And so that's when I told my mom, and she was like, I'm coming to get y'all. And so like I have part of like, so some of my story was like from when I was starving, didn't have any money. And then like my young adulthood was like with college and track and working through all of that. And then my dyslexia, because that's when I found out I was dyslexic. And then with my adulthood, the dip one, that one was when I lost my apartment, when me and my best friend at the time was sharing a dollar sandwich because we didn't have any money. And then now it's on passing this exam because I'm trying to pass the life exam. And so that's kind of bringing back the dyslexia and like learning like to take tests and everything else. And so my story kind of has like 2 different parts in regards to like the money aspect and then like the disability. So I don't know if I should blend those together or do them separate whenever I'm telling a story.
So you don't have to blend them together. You can decide with what, it depends on which audience you're in front of. So if you're teaching someone how to be really, just say you're teaching someone how to have a good money mindset or how to be good with money or something like that, then for sure you want to talk about being broke or starving and not having anything to eat and coming out of that, right? But then if you were, say you were, and I'm just making stuff up here, but say you were with an audience where learning disabilities was in the room, or people were talking about they don't feel like they're enough or that they're not worthy, you know what I mean? Or really self-confidence, self-esteem type issues, then that story would fit really well into that. But if you were coaching someone and they were sort of struggling, you know, in both areas, they were sort of struggling with money and mindset and all of it sort of together. You could potentially use both stories, but you don't have to blend them. You can decide when you're going to tell which one according to what's going on with the particular audience you're with. That would be the best way to do that. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
So Daisy, with that being said, I've heard that you should have multiple stories.
Mhm.
So that is true.
Yes, you should have multiple stories, and some people call it your signature story, your offer story, your landing story. There are lots of different stories that you can have for different occasions that you pull out, and depends on what's happening. You decide to tell that story. So this is sort of a resiliency story that we're talking about today. So this is not even your signature story. So your signature story may sound even different. Your signature story is sort of that story that you could tell in any, whatever area, whatever room you're in. It would just sort of be your signature story. It would just kind of introduce you to the audience. That's like a signature story. And you sort of put a lot of pieces of your life in that signature story, right? And it sort of ends up being your core, who you are. Your resiliency story is truly talking about, hey, you don't have to stay where you are. And this is how I'm telling you, you don't have to stay there. You can move, you can change, right? So if you were doing a keynote, you would have really worked on a different story than this. You would have worked on your signature story. Hopefully that's not confusing everyone, because I know we're gonna have training on signature stories today. It's a lot to storytelling. It's a lot to storytelling. But resiliency story tends to be one of the ones that people first embrace because they know it's going to help someone. Okay. So I was going to play that. Let me see how are we on timing? We're already over time. So if you guys get a chance, this is a young lady that one of the young ladies that I trained through her resiliency story, and I'll just tell you what it is. You get a chance to go out and take a look at it. But she ended up with about 5,000 or more views on her story. And it's really about her saying, growing up in this sort of chaotic home with her parents, and they were always fighting. Domestic violence was always there. And then she did the thing and she ended up in pilot training. And when she was in pilot training, her mom ended up, it went too far. Her mom ended up shooting her dad and killing her dad in the middle of her in pilot training. And how she learned what she called take a knee, learning how to say she needed help, and how that helped her, not hurt her. And so she went back to the training base, which I was doing storytellers with. She went back to the training base for other Black girls that were going through pilot training to mentor them, to help them get through. So every time somebody who's in pilot training, not just those young girls, but anyone who might have been struggling in pilot training, they could come back and they could look at this story. So this story has at least helped 5,000 people. They can look at her story and go, oh, if she got through it, she could do it, I could do it. Does that kind of make sense? So that's how powerful that ends up being, is she learned how to take a knee, she learned how to work through it, and now she's telling that story. And there's a whole process, guys, and that's what we're going to do in our workshop. If you guys come out, there's a whole process to really learning how to lay this out. But that's what she did. And right now she's sitting at over 5,000 views in telling her story. So if you get a chance, go to Columbus Air Force Base storyteller page and take a look at that. Really quick, I'll go through the steps. These are the steps, and this is what we would do in the workshop. So you have to organize the story. You have to decide on a theme or a central message for your story. And then you have to consider how your story aligns with your goals, kind of like we were just talking about. Where do you want to tell that story? And then you also have to, can your story create connection? And so the biggest way your story creates connection is, I always say, this is my little secret I give to people as I'm helping them do their story. I always say, what do you want them to walk away with? And you need to repeat that over and over and over in the story. So it should be something that you want them to walk away with. And then you repeat that throughout the story over and over and over, so they get the central message. And then you learn how to craft your story around what you want them to walk away with, right? And your story can be truly impactful. And what if you want to, now that you've crafted that story, it takes some time to craft that story. And like I said, that's what we do inside of the workshop. But once you craft that story, these are some of the amazing things that people do with their story. They put it on the social media, blog, podcasts, they collaborate, they do TED Talks, they help build a personal brand around their story. They use it as a catalyst for personal and collective growth, because don't you know, as you tell your story over and over, what you haven't healed from, you heal from, you heal too, because you've taken the scariness out of the story by telling it. So you start to heal too. And some people use it just to reflect on how far they've come. Some people write their story in a book, and they learn how to write the story in the book, not just for them and regurgitating what they went through, but they write the story in a book form to help somebody else. Because it's always about somebody else. Because you've already gone through the story. So some people create a plan to continue to tell their resiliency story over and over and over. Some people, once they master the resiliency story, what we talked about a little earlier, then they go on to master other stories. Their signature story, their offer story, their landing story, once they sort of master one story, right? So we are going to have a workshop on the 12th of June. It's $97. It's a 2-hour workshop. And in that workshop, I will help you craft your story. Craft that one resiliency story that you want to concentrate on. So if you're interested in the workshop, just let me know in the chat, and I'll make sure I get everything to you for you to be able to sign up for the workshop. Okay. And before we go, this is my podcast, just a little bit funny. So Chanel, you've been through so much. But girl, you don't fear, so tell me. and you're vibrant and you got that beautiful smile and then all of this going on. So what's your secret? What do you do to stay on top of this and be an entrepreneur and keep going? What's your secret?
Before I do anything, I meditate. I got to, you know, recharge, like we recharge our phones, we got to recharge ourselves and into who we are, knowing who God created. All of us have a purpose in this life. So every morning I meditate for at least 10 minutes every morning. And so I do have ideas and stuff. I just speak my affirmations, and that will really keep me just vibrating high. Faith in God, I have to realize is that I can't control nothing. Everything is a bad thing. If you're gonna worry, don't pray. If you're gonna pray, don't worry. Learn to love yourself. Everything you go through in life, ask yourself, what's in it for me? And you know, you gotta take care of your star player no matter what.
Bouncing back and coming back and coming back in and doing it a healthy
way, yeah. Self care, love yourself more, talk gentle to yourself. You got to, because if it's one thing for me, finding myself, knowing who Chanel is, and Chanel, I've been lost my mind right now. So look at myself and look, after do a mirror test, look at myself. We talk, they're like my best friends, and one time we have that relationship, and now we have it.
Yeah, I love that. When a woman heals, she heals everyone around her. And so that's what we do in my podcast. We're all about real stories, real healings, because we know when we heal everyone around us. And so again, that's my workshop here. If you're interested in the workshop itself, put your name in the chat. Just say me, and I'll get the information to you about the workshop. June 12th is our workshop. Or if you know anyone who is interested in actually crafting out their story, we're going to do that workshop on the 12th. And then later, I do want to introduce you guys to it. This is not happening now, but later, Boss Life Design, that's my baby. It will be coming out this summer. You're going to spend 12 weeks with me in Boss Life Design, and we're going to design your life like you want it. We're going to design it like you want it. It's amazing. It's deep. It is everything that you want to get to start growing the life you want, to get your bags. What I mean by bags, what the kids say, bags, get the money, get the everything. We're going to design it just like you want it, your boss life. So if you're really interested in that, let me know, but let me know if you want to do the workshop. I'm going to end with this, and I think you owe it to yourself. So self-care is healing work for your entire being, for your mind, to your body, and to your soul. When you heal yourself, you create an earth-shattering legacy. The lineage of women who come after you will be healed. Your inner circle of Black women around you healed. By actively choosing yourself, you are breaking the generational curse of trauma that has cycled through your family. I need some of you to read that again. You activate your ancestral strength. And that's a Adura Adiyu. And so that's all I have, ladies. I will leave it open for question and answer. If anybody have any questions right now, I would love for us to chat a bit. But I do understand. What are people thinking? And of course, write in the chats if you're interested in the other session. If not, thank you all so much for your time. And we're going to end here. I really thank you, ladies. Y'all have a good night. And Antoine, I saw you come in. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
No problem. Appreciate it.
That's a fascinating insight. And then obviously, you got the chess matches that take place in Europe. So interesting. And you actually predicted this.